Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So in this one I have something really exciting, at least to me it is, and it is a Elegoo 3D printer. So we are going to be unboxing this today. So the first part of this video is going to be about unboxing it, seeing what comes inside of it, what it looks like and everything else like that. Then we're going to probably skip ahead a couple of days and just give you my first impressions about this 3D printer and how it is as a complete newbie to 3D printing. So I have never used one at all before. So it's going to be really interesting to see, I guess, if you're interested in getting into 3D printing for whatever reason, then this could be the video for you, because obviously I'll be talking about how easy it is, things like the resin smell and everything else that it does to the place it's going to be used in. And yeah, we'll just go from there. So let's get on with the video, shall we? So I've been interested in getting a 3D printer for a little while now, and the Elegoo Mars Pro seems to be one that was pretty well reviewed. A lot of people talk pretty highly about, and recently it's been on a pretty decent sale with Amazon. So I picked this up for £130 with the sort of like discount vouchers and everything else that they just had on the page. So to be fair, it seemed like a pretty decent price considering everything that you get with this. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to get a 3D printer, or a resin one in particular, was just for a bit of D&D. So being able to do some of the campaigns and I guess just give it a bit more life to the stuff. Just being able to print out some of the models and maybe some of the terrain and the enemies and heroes and everything else. So let's pop the foam aside. Okay, so inside of it you get, see, a little kind of instruction booklet. I will definitely need to read that. It's apparently not the best instruction booklet, so I guess I'll end up watching quite a few videos. Toolkit, so I'll pop this aside for now and we'll get onto that very shortly. Ooh, and then the 3D printer, which is actually much heavier than I expected it to be. Nothing else in there, so let's pop that aside. Okay, so we have our 3D printer here, which is kind of about the size I expected it to be. Really well wrapped, to be fair. There's a lot of foam packaging in there, so it's really well protected. So fingers crossed nothing is broken. Now before we jump into the actual 3D printer itself, let's see what we get in the toolkit. So obviously it should be all like your safety gear and stuff like that. So we've got a few Allen keys there and a couple of extra screws as well, so I guess that's always handy to have. This scraper, so apparently for getting the models off of the plate at the end, you kind of have to scrape them off and knock them into your cleaning fluid and all of that. Your power, so your power cables. And this little bracket, now I believe this enables you to kind of attach it just above like the, I guess the resin tray, and it puts it at a slight angle, so when you're waiting for all the resin to drip off of it, it's pretty handy for that. Little plastic scraper, so I assume to maybe not do as much damage to the plate. Some filters, just pop these aside. Some safety face masks as well, because apparently it is not a good idea to breathe in the resin fumes and all of that. And then some gloves and a nice little USB as well, so you'll be able to kind of get all of your different 3D printing files onto this and then plug it into this bad boy. And there you go, rubber gloves and a little kind of measuring jug as well. This is, I believe, the gasket that goes around this sort of kind of bottom of the plastic tray as well. And what's this? Oh, okay, some clippers. I was looking for mine earlier because I didn't know if you got any of these with it, so that's handy to have because I have no idea what I did with my old modelling clippers. And here we go. So all in all, the Mars Pro seems like a pretty decent deal if you're looking at getting into 3D printing. So there's two types. So there's the one that like heats up these spools of plastic and melts it down and then puts it out in layers. And that's always looked pretty interesting, but the finished result is always, I guess, unless you did a lot of polishing and cleaning up, it always just looked a little bit odd. And then recently when I started looking into 3D printing again after Black Friday, because I saw these discounted down, I got really tempted by them. I saw that they had obviously these resin printers and I started to look online, watched quite a few videos about them, and they just seemed really just good for what they managed to print out, and especially for the price. So they seemed like they gave a lot of detail on miniatures and models and stuff like that, and it just seemed like something that anybody who knows me knows that when it comes to tech or anything like that, I can get really obsessed by certain things and just need to get it. So this has ended up on my hit list, and when it was down for 130 quid, it just seemed like an absolute no-brainer for me. Ooh, it's all kind of shrink wrapped and ooh, this is sticky. Oh, this is an unsatisfactory peel. Oh, there it goes. Oh, I'm like some kind of savage trying to get into it. Just, oh, got a bit of static there. It is, I might be bulging on top, but my arms certainly aren't, and they are getting pulled over. Right, here we go. So that should come up. Here we go. We can get rid of that now. And we have a lot of foam inside of it. So I've got to say, the packaging on this is really good. There's foam through the box. There's foam obviously on the inside as well. This is not getting broken unless you have a very, very dodgy, dangerous delivery driver. So hats off to Elegoo for that. That is coming off. Oh, there we go. Oh, something in there. I was about to throw it. I'm glad I didn't. Aha! I'm very glad I didn't throw it. It was that would have left a dent, wouldn't it? Okay, so here we have it. We have our printer. So all in all, I mean, it feels really solid. Like I said, I wasn't expecting it to be this heavy. I don't know why. I just assumed it would be a lot more plastic, but this is a lot of metal. There's so much of it on here. Wow, it is. Like I said, it's really heavy. Let's take a look. So, have our plate that will need attaching. We have this sort of the resin tray. Let's take this off. Ooh. Ooh. That was a much more satisfactory peel. I enjoyed that. Whew. Get a little bit hot under the collar with that. Okay, so I assume these untighten. Yeah, this is one of those moments, you know, where you see the instruction book at the start and you think, I really need to read that, and then I just don't. Okay. Step 1, please peel this. So let's see if we can get another. Ah, what? Okay, wow. We've gone from ultra satisfied for peeling to just awful. Definitely not as good. Okay, so we'll pop that back in there. Tighten those bad boys up. Okay, we do have one more peel. Now, from what I have seen with some people when they've been looking at these is peels nicely there and then it gets stuck, or it just pulls straight out under there. So I've seen other people who get stuck and they've had to kind of loosen the bolts. Okay, so I mean, there's not really much to see, to be fair, at this stage. We've unboxed it. We've got a really heavy piece of machinery. So if I kind of lay it down there for the overhead camera, on the front you have this little screen here, so that'll display all the bits that you're doing, so you can select things like files that you want to print. You've got USB on the front, which is really handy, so that we're not having to kind of shift it about all over. If we kind of turn it over, you've just got this kind of two-tone side with the red underneath the black, which looks really smart. You've got your feet as well, which, okay, so they twist nicely, so that way if you're kind of trying to level it, you'll be able to do that. And then you've got your sort of fan down the bottom there as well. On top, looks like you have another fan as well, so putting out some air there just to keep it cool. Now I do need, let's pop that on, so this will kind of fasten onto there, so I'll do that later. But whilst we're here, let's pop this sort of rubber bottom on, shall we? Pop that over there. So like I said, the first part of this video is all about the unboxing of it, and then we are going to skip ahead a couple of days and we'll just give you my impressions about how it performs, how easy it is to use as well, because like I said, I have never used a 3D printer at all. So I've ended up with a few files and I've subscribed to a few people's Patreons as well, because there's some really interesting looking things out there that I just absolutely want to be able to play. So I'll let you know how easy it has been to use, to set it up as well, and what all of that's like, and then just the quality of the minis that I print out. So I'll have a few of those, well, fingers crossed I'll have a few of those. I mean, I might just completely fail, or just like I am with this right now, might absolutely fail with that, so you never know. So I'll try to have a few minis on there and talk you through my experience of it, and just let you know whether or not at this first initial stage if I think it's worth it. So make sure you stay tuned for the next part of the video, which I'm going to skip ahead to now because I'm really making a pig's ear of this. See you soon. Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of this video. So it's been about 2 days now of using the Elegoo Mars Pro, and I've got to say so far I'm really impressed. So you know, I'm going to just cover off a couple of the minis that I've done and my experience of using it so far and just, I guess, first initial impressions of it. Now, right off the bat, I just want to say there was an issue that I ran into where it was coming up with unknown files or unknown file format every time I was plugging it in. And just for anybody else who's maybe getting this device, just to save you a lot of headache, because as far as I was aware, I was doing everything absolutely correctly. So what I did is I downloaded, or tried to download, Chitubox or whatever it's called, off of this, and it just didn't work with my MacBook. It just kept on crashing every time I was trying to do it. So I went to the Chitubox website, downloaded the latest version, and any sort of files that I put on here to print, it just kept on coming up as unknown format on the Elegoo. So that was really frustrating. So I moved across to my Windows PC just to see, was it an issue or something that I was doing wrong? Again, downloaded the latest version of Chitubox from the website, and it had exactly the same problem. I did a lot of troubleshooting to see if it was a file format, if it's something I was doing with the settings, and it took me hours and hours of trying to figure this out. And in the end, what I did is I just installed an older version of Chitubox on my Windows PC and did exactly the same thing as I've been doing beforehand, and it worked. So just bear that in mind. If you use an older version of Chitubox, it seems to work. However, the brand new version of it on my Mac and Windows PC didn't work with this device. I don't know why. I don't know why. There must be some kind of compatibility issue there. However, once I got past that sort of initial hurdle, it basically is plug and play. Literally, you find your files that you want to use. So I've been using some really interesting ones from Arc-Villain Games, and literally download them, put them onto your USB stick, and pop them in like so. Hit print. So you basically hit the print button on there. Find the file that you want to print. See, it takes a few hours depending on what sort of settings you program into it. Okay, so a little model like this, and we'll have some close-ups for you, took about 4 to 5 hours. So it wasn't overly long, but it is a bit of a wait. However, once I started dialing in the settings and just having a bit more of a play with it, I was then printing off things like this, which is this sort of Hell Knight from Arc-Villain Games, and that took 12 hours to print off. With those settings kind of fiddling around with it again, I managed to get, again, something like this, but with a little bit more detail on it, and that took 6 hours. So your mileage may vary depending on what sort of thing you do for like your layers and everything else. However, the plug and play settings really came out much better than I expected. So buying this thing, I had kind of really high hopes, but relatively low expectations. And I've got to say my expectations have been blown away. These things have come out really well, if I do say so myself, and definitely worthy of being able to kind of paint up. Now, I haven't painted in years. So, you know, the one I'm showing you here, so this is the, I can't remember, like the Hellfire Inquisitor or something like that from Arc-Villain Games. I haven't painted in a long time, so you're not coming here for painting tips, trust me. So, you know, go easy on me in the comments. But as you can see from the close-ups of this thing, there is so much detail on it. Things like the detail on his shield, and you've got that star in the middle there, and all those kind of bits that are ingrained into it. His armor looks absolutely superb, and there's even quite a bit of detail around his face. You can see some of the strands in his beard, and just overall the detail that came out of it. Bear in mind that I did no playing around with the settings. It was literally downloading the file, slicing it up on Chitubox, putting it onto the USB, and then plugging it into that and leaving it to print. Came out really impressively well. On something like this Hell Knight, which hasn't been painted yet, I've literally just printed it off and then primed it. I think, again, it looks so incredibly good. His horse there, for example, you can see all like the chain links and stuff like that. The detail on his weapon and his armor, it just all looks incredibly good. So I'm really impressed with the quality that this thing is able to do. So obviously quality and everything else like that, it really blew me away. But let's talk about some of the other stuff, because you know what, I'm showing you some of those close-ups there, and hopefully you agree there's a lot of detail there, especially for something that is 3D printed, and at that £130 price point, I'm really blown away. But then there is obviously another side to 3D printing, especially with resin, that you'll probably see talked about quite a lot, that it's smelly and it's messy and everything else. So I'm going to give you a little bit about how I've experienced it so far, and it's not bad. There is a lot of things you have to jump through. So obviously when you're handling this stuff, you need to be wearing rubber gloves, you need to have a mask on as well, you're going to need a lot of cleaning bits and bobs. So worthwhile bearing in mind that it's not just a case of putting in your resin, hitting print, taking it out, and then you are ready to go. When these things come out, they are covered in all sorts of supports, and that's just to stop them from collapsing in on themselves. And it's not just a case of breaking off those supports and going. You need to give them a wash and clean them all up. So when I took these out, it's a case of dropping them into an IPA bath, so using this alcohol, kind of washing it up and making sure you get all of that loose resin off of it, and that takes quite a bit of time. Then you've got to break off all the support, and then afterwards they also need curing, so I've had to put them in the sunlight for a little while. Some people use a UV lamp and bits like that, and that just hardens up all the resin and just makes sure that they are ready to go. Now, that's obviously quite a few steps to jump through, so you've got to wait a couple of hours, or, you know, sometimes up to 12 hours, maybe even longer to get a model to print. You've then got to clean it all up. You've got to be wearing your gloves and your mask, and whatever room you use it in is gonna smell. So the resin doesn't smell anywhere near as bad as I was expecting based on some of the reviews and a lot of people's feedback. It's just got a, I guess, almost like a plasticky smell to it, and it's lingering in this room for a little bit. However, it's definitely there, it's definitely noticeable, and this room's been really well ventilated, so bear that in mind. The thing that really stands out is the IPA smell. So obviously when I'm using the IPA, and it's in like a Tupperware thing at the moment, when you pop that lid off and the smell starts to kind of flutter into the room, and that does linger a lot. So to be honest, this is going to go into my garage, and I'm going to pop it outside and just have a bit of a workshop area, and then that way I don't have to worry about it too much. But obviously some people aren't going to have access to a garage or another room where you'll be able to put it into. So if this is going to be something that you're going to be using in a relatively small space and you don't have that, I guess, extra room or place for it to go into, it's definitely worthwhile bearing in mind, because it's certainly something that it's definitely noticeable. It's not over the top, and it's not like I was expecting. It is better than I was expecting, but it is noticeable, and I wouldn't want to have this running in my house full time because it smells in this room and it starts to smell in the hallway as well. So you know what, if you don't have a space for it, it's probably going to be something that's going to be noticeable and quite frustrating at times. However, it was nowhere near as bad as I was expecting, and this comes very close to being just plug and play. Apart from that one little issue I had with the unknown file format, just really frustrating, it drove me absolutely crazy. It was just a case of getting my files, popping it onto there, plugging it in, and then leaving it for those hours as it printed it off. Once I came back to it, washed it off, cleaned it all up, and things were looking really good. And so far I've been really impressed with the Elegoo Mars Pro. So basically, to sum up, would I recommend it? Well, at that £130 price point that I got it for, absolutely. It's such a good deal in my opinion. There are so many cool and fun things that I've subscribed to, and I'm probably going to end up spending an absolute fortune on like subscription for files. So the one that I'm using at the moment is Arc Villain Games. I've also used a couple from Loot Studios as well, so there's so many good things. And one of the great things they do there is you subscribe, and every month they give you all the models and miniatures that will go into a campaign, and they give you all the rules and all the different move sets and the storyline. It's endless fun, but it's probably going to end up costing more money than I would have spent buying the minis on their own. So, but that's because I'm subscribing to all those things. In itself, it's a really good, in my opinion, a value proposition, because you can print off the minis that you want to. They certainly get a lot more mileage than just kind of buying a load from Games Workshop, for example, which will bankrupt you. But at the end of the day, it depends what type of mini you're into and what sort of thing you're going to be able to do with this. So I'm going to have a lot of fun. There's a lot of files that I really look forward to printing. So let us know in the comments, would you like to see some more follow-up videos for the 3D printing side of things? Would you like to see some of the projects that we do with 3D printing and some of the models as they come out, and I guess just different tips and bits that we are doing with this thing? Because there's a lot of ideas that we have, it's just whether or not you guys, the audience, want to see that sort of thing. So let us know in the comments below, and we will take that on board as we go forward in the future. For £130 or even the £200 asking price that it normally is, I personally think that's a really good deal. If you're kind of looking at this already, then you've got an inkling that you want to be able to do some kind of 3D printing project, or you've got some ideas of models that you want to do. And this thing, it's a really good price for that. There's better quality ones coming out in the very near future. I believe it's the Mars Pro 3 they've got, which has like a 4K screen instead, so it'll be able to print in more detail. But the detail on these is pretty damned good. So at a starting price, just to kind of get into it and see whether or not you would use something like this, it's a really good thing to go for. Bottle of resin, this is the Elegoo grey goo stuff, and that cost me about £30 a tub. So far, I've not even used half of it, and I've printed off a fair few minis. So, you know what, this will probably last me a decent amount of time as I experiment and get used to it. All in all, I think in the long run, it's definitely going to save me money rather than buying all the minis separately. So, I think it's a pretty good deal, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are you interested in this sort of thing? Do you have a 3D printer? Do you have any recommendations for me? Because this was a full-blown newbie experience, and it's, yeah, at the end of the day, I have a lot to learn about this. So if you've got any tips or tricks, throw them down in the comments below. Make sure you bash that like button as well, because it just helps YouTube to push this video to more people. And if you want to see more 3D printing content in the future, let us know in the comments, because you know what, we'll take your feedback on board and we'll see what we can do. In the meantime, stay safe and we will see you soon. Bye.